All right, I've just been thinking, let me do some totally different type of video. And once before, I did a video on panic attacks and what they're caused by. You're having a lot of stress, your body builds up a lot of adrenaline, and then when you sit down to relax, it releases it, and you feel like you're losing your mind. Okay? Now, what I want to talk to you this time about is a midlife crisis. Now, a lot of people go, there's no such thing as a midlife crisis. That's usually from a moron who never had a really stressful job, who never tried to push himself forward every year. He's in a layback job. He's doing the same job that he did 30 years before, and he's a fathead. Okay, those people, they don't have panic attacks. They don't have midlife crises. They have a family that take care of all the stuff they should be doing. Now, when you're a person that has a midlife crisis, you basically have everything running fairly smoothly. In my case, I had the house paid off, the car was paid off. Uh, I had assets of $500,000, but you peak mentally, chemically in your brain, and it's triggered by certain things. Maybe you're working for a company that you know is going to go out of business, in my case, and you've had other jobs that went the same way, and then now you know you're going to have to be looking for a new job or go with the company when it moves. They're laying off people. They're letting you do their jobs, and here I am. I'm sitting at work. I told you this before. Every time I repair something, I have three pieces of paper. One piece of paper has to go down the hall in a pouch, up the other way in a pouch, and up to the front in a pouch. I also had to answer the telephone. So, and I had a guy that we had circuit boards I was repairing. We had this guy, he was mentally retarded, and he never took a bath. He was really bad, and he used to stack the circuit boards and chuckle. And he knew by stacking the circuit boards on top of each other, it would break stuff. They never got rid of him. They never reprimanded him. So I come out of a high involvement meeting and I see the pile, and I see him off to the side snickering because he was retarded and he was jealous of anyone that was smarter than him. I saw that. I decided I'm going to go home for the day after the meeting because it's all bullshit. And I tell the girl, she hands me the phone. It's a guy that wants something fixed. There's only 5 of them in existence. The guy wants me to send him one instead of him sending the machine in. I just said, you know what? Tell the guy I just quit. That was the point. I've had enough. Okay? This guy on the phone's telling me I have to send him a new unit, and he's going to send me his in for repair. I don't have a new unit. There's only 5 of them. I'm the guy that's trained on that job, and that's the moment I snapped. But it started before then. Okay? At 37, I snapped. Before that, my parents died early. I went through my mother being sick with cancer. I went through my father dealing with my fact that my mother was dead, and he had all kinds of free time, and he retired. He had no idea what he should do with himself. He got a girlfriend. The girlfriend fell and hurt her hip, broke her hip. She was in the hospital. It's snowing like crazy every day. He can't go up there to visit her. Well, anyway, oh, and then he dies. He dies shoveling snow, which he's not supposed to do. I made it a few more years at the job. It was just one thing after another. Okay, on my days off, my sister would drop my nephew by for me to watch while she could go do something. Everybody was using me. I had no real life, and I snapped. And I didn't hurt anybody, but I snapped. And when you're in a midlife crisis, everything changes all at once. It's almost like, well, I quit working, but in other words, all your belief systems, who you are, it all changes all at once. You don't get a chance to slowly work into anything. Like if your parents decided to move, and you were a little kid and you watch them pack everything up, and then you move, and maybe you play with some of the kids in the neighborhood, and then you go back to school at a new school. Okay, but a midlife crisis is your value system. Everything changes. It's almost like you're a different person, but you still know who you basically were. Not who you are, who you were. And little by little, you kill off the person you were, your belief systems. You might get a new job. Some guys just run out and buy new cars. They cheat on the wife. But what it feels like is something's missing. You get that feeling something's missing. Let me put it to you this way. Like you go on a trip and you pack all up, and as you're driving, you just get this feeling like you forgot something. But you didn't. It's just this anxiety feeling and chemicals on the brain, and it basically pulls up memories of other times where you forgot something. All right? Now, in a midlife crisis, you feel like something's missing, and you can't put a finger on it because nothing really is missing. But your perception, your chemicals on your brain is telling you something's missing. And there is nothing missing. It's because it's part of the aging process. And it happens more with people in the United States because you're better educated. You get to a point where everything's going what you think smoothly. Everybody else is perceiving you as doing really well, but you're not perceiving yourself as really doing well. You feel empty all of a sudden. I mean, it hits you like a rock. And you start telling your friends, and they will not help you. If they're going through the same thing, they stay mum. All right? They have their family. They get involved in certain things, even though they're pushing themselves. I can explain to you it this way. When you're a little kid and you had a yo-yo, your friend had a yo-yo, you're playing as a group. And then maybe the next month it's kites. And you're playing, and you get like satisfaction, and you're moving forward, and you get your first car, you get your first computer, you get your first your first job, your first computer, all that stuff, and there's steps, there's monumental steps in your life, and you're moving forward, All of a sudden, you're at this point where you may have bought houses, and you're renting them out, and all you have to do now to become filthy, dirty rich is just keep doing that. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Now, in my case, I'm up to a point. I have more money than I have 20 years worth of I'm not going to work anymore, and it was actually more than that. And that's looking you in the face, and you're like, well, more money isn't making me happier. And if I was to buy up housing and rent it out, there's problems that come with that. And you got this big nagging feeling that something's missing. It's almost like a really religious person is going along. They're a minister, they're in the church, and all of a sudden they just realize that God really doesn't exist anymore. So not only are they losing the feeling that God doesn't exist anymore, they're losing the people that were around them in the church and all that, because now they're a non-believer. A midlife crisis is actually worse, okay? Everything changes. Your favorite television programs, you can't stand them anymore, okay? Even certain foods, you're like, I'm so tired of eating that. And you start looking for excitement. You start doing stupid stuff because you need the stimulation. The stimulation of a friend saying, hey, look at this new yo-yo. It's at a smaller level. And you get excited over going and buying a yo-yo, learning the different tricks, all right? Maybe you got a pet hamster or a pet cat. And it's in stages. And now you're an adult. And what excites you takes so much more. It's like a drug addict. And now, at some point, there's an upward spiral. And then you reach it. A new car isn't going to do it for you. Cheating on the wife is going to cause problems. Yeah, it's going to be exciting, sexually exciting, but it's going to bring problems with it. And then if you get a divorce, you got to shuttle back and forth visiting the kids. Meanwhile, you feel empty, and nothing you do will fix it. Over time, it drops back, but I can tell you, it never really goes away. The nostalgia, Rosebud, Citizen Kane, all right. Rosebud was a sled he had. The sled symbolized when he was a child and when he was carefree. And then they came and got him, and they introduced him to a world that was totally different. He got caught up in the world. He kept moving up. Citizen Kane kept moving up. Newspaper. I never watched the movie fully through, but it's basically a midlife crisis in part of the movie. Same with Babbitt. I've told you once before, Babbitt worked really hard, family man, involved in all these different groups in the town. He ran different things. And every year, him and his buddy, for 2 weeks, they go fishing and hunting. And that's what he looked forward to. Well, the buddy beat up his wife and got put in jail. So then Babbitt tried to get him out of jail, tried to get the wife to resend that he beat her up so he could get out of jail, and she wouldn't do it. So Babbitt goes hunting and fishing with another person, and it's not the same. All right, Babbitt's world starts to fall apart. He's going into a midlife crisis. His favorite thing is now gone with his favorite friend. He cheats on his wife with a beautician, not a beautician. She did his manicurist, and the manicurist is like, say, Italian or some other thing. And then he goes from being like a totally white, maybe English guy, hanging out with a woman that's basically Italian or whatever. And back in those days, that's a no-no. And then he starts to see that his group of friends won't let an Italian businessman into the group, and he starts sticking up for people. He realizes he's killing off the old Babbitt to become the new Babbitt. Now, I won't ruin the end of the book for you or the movie, but Babbitt is going through a midlife crisis. He kills off who he was before. All those thoughts, all his things, well, that's what you go through with a midlife crisis. You start questioning everything, okay? Because you've peaked. Now, it is still possible that if you really want to make money, that after you go through the crisis or while you're in crisis, you can actually start a business on your own and hit it big, okay? But this emptiness will not, and then money will not fix it. And this is what you see with these singers and rock stars. They hit it earlier on. In other words, what they dreamed for has already been achieved. And now all that's left is everyday life like everybody else. You know, the old saying, he still has to put his pants on 1 foot at a time, or 1 leg at a time. All right? And you watch this, and I watch it now that I've gone through it, and I want to tell you what it feels like. And people don't talk about these things. I talked about the anxiety attacks once before. Nobody talks about it. And the wife will not understand what the husband's going through with a midlife crisis, but yet the guy is supposed to understand what she's going through when she goes through menopause. So that's why a lot of marriages, they're actually over when the children come along. The marriage, the honeymoon, the kids come along, it's nothing but grief with the kids, providing for the kids, and that's why you see people break up. And you're like, what? Because they didn't grow apart. They want to be a kid again. All right, they're not really an adult when they have the kid. And a lot of people do that with a dog. They get a dog, they go through the puppy stage, they don't train the dog correctly, and the dog becomes a real jerk, and then they get rid of the dog. Okay? All the happiness of it being a puppy could actually be prolonged as the dog is an adult, but they don't put the groundwork in. But that you can actually see. They didn't put the groundwork in. The dog is a jerk. The same with people that start doing drugs. Everybody knows drugs bad. You become addicted, but there's people that still do it. And they become really annoying to me when they tell me about going to rehab. I don't want to hear it because it was preventable in the first place. Okay, there's a lot of stuff in the world that's like that. The person makes the mistake. Going into it, they knew they were making a mistake, but then somehow they want you to help them, or they want you to listen to the fact that they made the mistake that they shouldn't have made. And that's a lot of it. But midlife crisis, I remember my father. I remember he was still at work. At work. My mom was still alive. My nephew hadn't been born yet. And I bought him the Mitatoya. Here it is here. I bought him this caliper. And I want to tell you, that was one of the, he's got his name on here, Kleinbauer. Girl up in the front office put that on for him. This is a Mitutoyo, and this is probably the best tool he ever owned as a tool maker. Okay, he flipped out when I bought this for him because he had a Brown and Sharp that someone sold him. It wasn't right, and this Mitutoyo has seen a lot of action. But I remember him holding that, and he was so nervous, and oh, I don't know if I want to dig it out of here. wait, I got to show you this. This is a real keepsake. And he got the hinges from me. But this is the paneling from our old kitchen. And he built a box, and he got the hinges from me. Okay? But he was so happy with that Mitutoyo. Okay? And that was before his midlife crisis. Now him and my uncle had a TV repair shop for a couple of years, but the wives got them to give it up. They were so happy. Okay? And then the next time I saw my dad really happy was him holding that Mitutoyo. I actually have a picture of him holding it. Well, anyway, as time went on, he would say to me, this is what he would say when he was in the midlife crisis. He says, you know, when you have a really good childhood, being an adult is not that good. And I didn't understand. And he would come home from work, and my mother would, at the dinner table, would be dumping on him. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to do this. And there were moments where, like, he would go bowling at work, and my mother would allow him to do that. But most of the time, he was just a servant of my mother and driving her over to see her family all the time. He was only able to visit his family once a year. The whole thing, I watched it. That's why I'm not married, because I have a similar personality. I know I would be pushed around, or it would end in divorce. Okay? So I have so much in my head, but when I went through the midlife crisis, it was 3 years earlier than the normal is 40 to 50. I did it at 37. But I had the anxiety of my parents dying early, all the stuff I went through, it hit earlier. And if you said to me, do you understand a midlife crisis? I said, sure, and I'd explain it to you. But when you're in one, you just think it's going to pass. It's like an anxiety attack, but it's not. It's deeper than that. It's everything. It's like I became more not pessimistic, more liberal. I realized what people really like and the hardships that people go through. And a conservative person, you're just a liberal. But when you look at what people have to go through every day, like these people working minimum wage, and you can't get out of the mess because you settle in. If you come out of high school and go right into, like I went to a trade school, you got a better chance of making it than if you wait a few years and work a crappy job thinking something's going to come along. It doesn't come along. You have to make it come along. So I have feelings for those people. They don't realize what's around the corner. See, I always had anxiety that I should do better and work harder than other people because you don't know what's coming down the line. Where other people think, oh, it'll pass. And there's songs like that, you know. They're usually country western songs, like Don't Worry About Tomorrow, and, you know, it'll all work out. It doesn't always work out. And you better be prepared. And some people just aren't prepared. And then you're at a minimum wage job. You may get somebody pregnant or you got kids. And it's not going to get any better for you. You keep renting. The rent keeps going up. The amount of money they give you at the minimum wage job for the last 10 years never really went up. And you get trapped. And I have feelings for those people. A lot of them don't want to work. And I have one guy, I know, he gets really angry with them. He goes, they don't want to work. And no, they don't want to be used. They figured out they're being used. And the American dream has become a nightmare. And it's because the big companies have gone. They're not in this country anymore. They've gone to a cheaper country. And those great jobs that were here don't even exist there. They did away with them. And other people don't see that. They only see it from there. They just don't want to work as hard as I worked. And I tell people, I quit at 37. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take the treadmill. And I put myself on that treadmill. And I didn't learn how to say no. I didn't know how to just get a job somewhere else and just walk up and give them the paperwork and say, here, I'm leaving. I had to actually just quit, all right, because I knew I couldn't handle the stress of working that place and still looking for a job. And the other thing too is the amount of companies that would hire an electronic technician started seriously disappearing. Now, I had like 20 something years worth of money. I quit working and I kind of did like, I did vacuum repair and VCR repair, vacuum repair, other repairs, blacktopping people's driveways, mowing people's lawns. Oh, and then I got into writing, becoming a writer and writing booklets. And I kept moving forward, but the real money wasn't really there. And I had guys explain to me that when you're a writer, it really helps to have a rich family that are proud of you and hand you money every so often. And that's what actually happens. Now, there are writers that struggle. Like the one that did the Harry Potter series, she was destitute at some point. That's rare. Most of the time, writers, they have college, the parents help them, and as long as the person's getting good grades and they're publishing, the parents flip them some money. Okay, I didn't have that option. Okay, when my parents were alive, they would always hint to me they needed some bucks from me, and I paid them rent for being at home, and I'd hand them money for a new dishwasher, a new dryer. That's what I was doing. It wasn't like when they died, they left me a lot. And my father left me everything, but I still split with my sister. And the stuff I went through, but the midlife crisis, when you're in one, it's going to be amazing. And if you actually figure out that you're in a midlife crisis, then all you do is read about it. Now with the internet, you can go up there and read, and there's different strategies, but it will pass. And what's happened is your chemicals in your brain changed. You kill off all the belief system that you had before. Now, a really conservative, stupid person will not change. All right, they're annoying. People avoid them, and when you're really a person that rethinks everything, maybe thinks too much, a midlife crisis is very deadly. Like I said, I had enough money, so when I started making these mistakes, like just quitting, it didn't affect me. Okay. Oh, and then when you're in a midlife crisis, in my case, people start to use you. They call you up. Oh, you're home today. You can go do this for me. My sister dropping the nephew off whenever she felt like going and doing something. You're basically a target for people that want to use you because you're home during the day. You got to watch out for that. And people don't talk about this stuff. They tell you, oh, these are the strategies if you think you're in a midlife crisis, and they have the questions, and you read those questions, and you're going to be 100% on every one of them, okay? Because everything changes. And like I said, when you're driving to go on a trip, that feeling you forgot something, think about that. It's an anxiety. Really, think about the alternative. Well, if I forgot something, I'll just buy it again. No. A person that cares, a person that thinks a lot, they're driving the car and they're running through the list for the 1,000th time in their head. Do I have enough gas? Did I shut everything off at home? Is it going to rain? Is it all this stuff? And you're thinking, and then you get to the place, and it is possible, wherever you're going to for vacation, you do unwind. But I was a person that, I'm a workaholic. I was called a company man by a lot of people. I made everything in my life based on my job. That's who I was. And then one day, I didn't want it anymore. Okay? Like Babbitt. The book Babbitt, Charles Sinclair, very hard book to read. I read it from cover to cover. And I spent days, and a lot of times I'd read the same page 3 times because I'm dyslexic. I could read the page and then totally forget it. It's a real nightmare I went through. But I read that book from cover to cover. And I won't say it changed my life. It just gave me a different perspective on what a midlife crisis is. But you all of a sudden want to change everything. It's like you want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And when you start talking to other people, they're like, give you that you're crazy look. But just wait. When they go through the midlife crisis, they suddenly want you to help them out. That's the downside of it. And like if you're married and the wife's going through midlife crisis, not midlife, menopause, and then suddenly you don't understand her. Think about how cruel life is. And I'm just telling you this because you might have gone through a midlife crisis, and you will come out the other side. But there will be things of the midlife crisis that don't go away. The bitterness, you look back on how people used you. All right. Now, in some cases, you become more nostalgic. You look back on those great times that you had when you were a kid because your mind was limited, and you actually laughed. I mean, when you were a kid, you laughed. Sometimes uncontrollably. And then when you become adult, you basically have a good day. Listen to this. They think they're my neighbors here in the neighborhood, they real high horsepower just to go to Wawa to get a cup of coffee. Well, anyway, yeah, you'll go through these changes and you'll think about different things and you'll look back on when you were a kid and the fun and you laughed. And then as you go older, it takes more and more to make you laugh. And you will see a comedian. Sometimes you'll be watching something like Bill Burr. It's funny, and you can watch it several times, and he'll still make you smile. He'll still make you chuckle. But I mean, when you were a kid, you laughed hysterically because you had no real responsibilities, and you didn't have the anxiety of the responsibilities. So everything affects your brain. And as you get older, you have more and more responsibility. Now, I want to tell you about those fatheads. The fatheads are married. They got kids. Oh, my kid's doing this. It's all lies. He has a different reality that he's in. The wife is carrying the load. She's working a job, and they're actually using her money. He's not moving up anymore. And he's got some real stupid hobbies. And, heavy drinker, heavy smoker. He's cheating on her. The whole thing's a nightmare. And like I said, when a lot of people start telling me a story or a problem, I've seen it before. And I just kind of nod and go, yeah, I don't give them advice anymore because they don't follow your advice. They're going to do what they're going to do, and then they're going to complain about it. And even if you tell them what to watch out for, it doesn't work. It's just a waste of time. And that's another thing you got to chalk up. See, as you go along in life and get more and more better at perceiving reality, you realize there's not a lot you can change. Like the old joke, how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is one, if the light bulb is willing. In other words, when a person goes to a psychiatrist, he wants the problem solved. So he works with the psychiatrist and they work together and they get past the problem, okay? Well, the light bulb, it has to be willing to change, okay? And that's the joke, okay? And you're saying a light bulb. Well, how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? Well, only one to change the light bulb if the light bulb is willing to change, okay? And a lot of people don't get the joke, but people go to psychiatrists and they go week after week and they never do any of the changes that the psychiatrist suggests. And that's because they want the problem fixed, but they're not willing to fix it. Those people are fatheads, okay? You know you got a problem, work with it. And I know I have problems. I tell people all the time, I know how crazy I can make myself because I care about other people. I care about the environment. I care what other people, they say they do, but they don't, okay? They have it real streamlined. It's like, yeah, I did a lot last week, and they really didn't. And then the other thing is the people that, they go on one trip a year, but they make it like they do it 20 times a year. A lot of people aren't in reality. My problem is I dwell on stuff too much. I know it. And I tell people straight out, I said, no, that ain't going to happen with me. I said, like mowing the lawn. I only think about it a little bit now because I shouldn't be mowing anymore. Now, sometime maybe next week, get more gas, put the mulch thing on the lawnmower, and I'll go around and chop up the leaves. You can't really give them away anymore. The garbage company don't want them. The town don't want them. So basically, you mulch them into your lawn to get rid of the leaves. And you have to do it when they're dry, and that's a day where maybe it's really nice out, and you're out there mulching the leaves. And that's some of the stuff that eats away at your adulthood And that's why you really want to be a kid, because when you were a kid, yeah, maybe you went out and raked leaves, but you had a lot of energy. And a friend might come over and help you. But when you're an adult, you're out there raking leaves. Maybe somebody will stop and talk to you, but it's totally different. The dynamics are different. Uh, your expectations are so much higher when you're an adult. When you're a kid, it's like, let me think of something like, oh, so-and-so has a new dog. Or they got one of them U-Control gasoline planes. And they're down at Homelight. Homelight was a chainsaw company near us. And they let you fly your airplane in their parking lot, play football in the back of their building. So-and-so is down at Homelight flying his gas plane. You all run down there. The excitement. He's got a gas plane. He gets it started. He gets it up in the air, crashes. In the case of the one plane, it would break loose from the string and go in the river. We had a big river there. And they'd have to go down to the boys' club, Boy Scouts, Sea Scouts, and they'd get a dinghy and row all the way down the river and get the remote, the U-Control plane. That stuff, as an adult, doesn't happen. So you use stronger string. You don't even fly the plane in the first case. Okay, that's why as you get older, in the old days, if someone opened the hood of their car and started working on it, everybody would migrate. Older men would migrate over there. All right, because you have conversation. You try to figure out what the problem is. You have a little bit of banter. But as time goes on, people start getting their cars fixed from somebody else. They don't even wash their own car. They go to a mister or someplace like that. So when you look at down this block here, you don't see someone out there with a hose washing their car. That's gone. So you don't walk up to them and say, hey, how you doing? That doesn't exist anymore. Nobody here, as poor as they are, they don't wash their own car. That's for the guy to do. And they don't clean their own gutters. That's for the guy to do. Okay, I still do most of the stuff myself. But when you're in a midlife crisis, perceptions of everything changes. You realize how much of an idiot some of your friends are. And you're like, man, and then you have friends that go through they watch sports and that's it. And they're telling you about a game you don't care about. And you're like, in the old days you could handle it. You're like, oh, they did pretty good. Yeah, I sort of watched part of the game. And then later on, you don't watch the game at all. And you're tired of hearing about it. Here's a 50-year-old man talking about a 20-year-old running around on the field. And you start looking at like, that guy makes $1 million per game. And I never made that in my lifetime. These thoughts start to hit you. And you're like, why am I watching this? And that's what happened to me. I can actually tell you the day it happened for sports. I had a neighbor next door. He was a big Giants fan. And I would watch the Giants every once in a while. And all of a sudden I put the game on and where's Hofstadler? And I went over to him. I said, after the game, I said, where's Hofstadler? Oh, they had too much talent or something and they had to trade him away. I said, I watched that freaking Giants because of Hofstadler. And a couple other the receivers that I knew their names and I followed. They got rid of them. Why do I watch it? And then he said to me, he goes, I have tickets. And he had tickets for the stadium. He goes, I'm letting other people use my tickets. He says, I don't, as you get older, you can't pee as fast as you used to pee. So he just said, I don't go to the games anymore because if I have to pee, it's a big production number. You got to get in line. And I'm like, holy mackerel. He goes, yeah. He says, it just isn't the same. And then right after that, he started going senile. But yeah, I've seen it all. But I just wanted to tell you about a midlife crisis. And it's very rare that you can get anyone to talk about it. Your family won't understand what you're going through, but you feel like something's missing. It's just that anxiety feeling. And they say you become grumpier. Go look it up. Go read about it. And then you'll say, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's a chemical thing that happens in your brain. It's from aging. But in other societies, it's not as big a thing because they don't have the money. They're struggling every day just to feed themselves or to get by. But what happens is when you're fairly well off and you're almost done paying the house off, your kids are, I think, out of college when it hits you, and you're like, everybody's like, thinks you got 2 good kids, you got grandchildren. It hits you like a bag of cement over the head. And you keep thinking it's going to pass, but it doesn't. And like I said, the feeling as if you forgot something, or something's missing, or you feel disenfranchised, or it's like you're reaching for something and you don't know what it is, and it just nags at you, and everyone around you doesn't understand because they don't have the chemicals on their brain doing that. It's almost like an hallucination. You're hallucinating that, you don't enjoy things anymore, and you don't. And like I said, my father used to say, when you had a really good childhood, being an adult, and that's what he was going through this. And, I'm like, yeah, he's in a grumpy mood. And he went through periods, and then when my mother went through change of life, after she came out of that, she denied all the stuff she did. Oh, the stuff that I've seen. But I just wanted to put that out there because most people, they have doctors on YouTube, and they explain when you're going through it, what it actually feels like. You feel like a leg is missing, but when you look down, the leg is still there. It's really weird, okay? And like I said, mine was triggered by a company that was closing down or was getting ready to move on me. And I had just that one day, that one moment, I said, you know what? I've had enough of this. I had enough. And I walked off the job. And that woman she was laughing. She thought I was going home and then coming back. I went home. I never went back. I never looked back. And you realize that a lot of those people, you actually think were your friend. They don't even call up and see how you're doing. I think that's it. All right, that's it.